All right, and we're live. Welcome back to the Loopcast. Today, joined as always by Josh and Erica. Erica is still here, still
I'm
here.
still
A real
here.
treat for the viewers. It is crazy. Still
I
here.
can't
We're
tear
glad.
myself away.
And we have the new format. We're on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, so we get to hang out with you guys a little bit more often. Shout out to Mitch, first in chat. If you guys want to say hello in the chat, please do so. Josh will fight you in the comments. So today we have a full show. We have that I almost want to start up top just to get the vibes right for the show. That Jason Kelce retirement speech was just so fun.
Oh,
We might even have to hop the line on that, but Jason Kelce was just a tearjerker. We have Biden finding new and creative ways to subvert the rule of law when it comes to immigration. And then we have a bombshell report with the WPATH files. I mean, I have those come along every once in a while, and that just blew my mind. I went through all that. So we're here to share all of that with you. So, Big Red, could we start up top with the Jason Kelce? It's the wrong Kelce. You like Travis Kelce, but this is Jason Kelce for any Eagles fans in here. So Jason Kelce, really a storied career.
He's the better Kelce, frankly.
established,
Right. Very
totally established.
Uncelebrated. It was funny when I interviewed Matt Burke with he won a Super Bowl with the Ravens, but he played for the Vikings for a while. So shout out Josh. He was talking about how he liked being an offensive lineman because they kind of get to hang out. They don't really have to be in the spotlight. He said their wives are the best because they love them at like 300 pounds. And so offensive linemen don't get a lot of attention or praise, obviously. I'd say Jason Kelce may have broken that model. He received a lot of attention probably because his brother was dating pop superstar, won a Super Bowl. But he really came from humble beginnings. He grew up in the Cleveland area. He didn't receive a full ride scholarship to go play football at Cincinnati. And his parents, he decided, were just such a huge influence in his life, getting him where he wanted to be. He read an awesome Calvin Coolidge quote in the Philadelphia video. I got to pull that quote up because I want to just like bookmark it for the future. Something for everyone to think about. I'm going to find that. Let's play the retirement video while I find that one. So let's roll on that. Big Red. Can we get some audio? Is audio not working?
Words matter.
All right, we're not gonna get audio on this. That is super unfortunate. Basically, Jason Kelce tried to get the vibes right, and the tech's not working. Jason Kelce talked about his greatest role, he believes, is his role as a father, and how much better society would be if all fathers treated that as their highest responsibility. He credits his own father with the success he's been able to achieve. He has a couple girls, and he was talking about his retirement. His decision making was a part of his father being a part of it. But something that doesn't need audio is this quote. So let's see. Okay, Calvin Coolidge. Nothing in this world can take the place of persistence. Talent will not. Nothing is more common than unsuccessful men with talent. Genius will not. Unrewarded genius is almost a proverb. Education will not. The world is full of educated derelicts. Persistence and determination alone are omnipotent. The slogan, press on, has solved and always will solve the problems of the human race. Calvin Coolidge, and now Jason Kelce.
Based.
So
I love Calvin Coolidge. Silent Cal, when he came out with a good one.
He didn't talk a lot. But when he did, he was kind of on heaters. So we'll see.
Let it be a lesson to us.
There's the old guy had a bet. He saw the President Coolidge in the stands, and he came up to him and said to the president, who's known for not saying many words, and he said, "I got my friend to bet that I could get you to say more than 2 words." And Coolidge turns to the man and said, "You lose."
Classic.
Well, we'll see if we can get our president to say 2 words at the State of the Union.
Man, it's coming up.
Oh, he will. There'll just be a lot of between them.
I don't have a lot of faith.
I don't.
But one thing that he has been successful in is
what actually, Tom, what they'll do? Here's what they should do for the State of the Union address. So instead of actually Biden coming before Congress and delivering the speech in front of the cameras and everything like that, he'll just write the speech and submit it to Congress and say, I'm just trying to be like Thomas Jefferson. I don't have to go in front of the Congress to try to convince everyone,
So Josh, there's people on the Hill that listen to this podcast, apparently, according to our lobbyists. So you really should just keep that to yourself. Don't give them any good ideas. I'm hoping it's a big crash.
I wouldn't possibly be baiting him into anything.
Yeah. I hope it's a big crash and burn session. I don't have high hopes for it, but
Yeah,
the one story that I think we can get into now, we can go on Super Tuesday thoughts soon, but I just could not believe my eyes when I saw this headline. If Big Red, you want to pull this up, we're talking about 320,000 migrants were flown into the country by the Biden administration to avoid having to check in at the southern border, which
do not pass go. Do not cross the Rio Grande. We'll fly you right to Cincinnati.
Exactly.
Right from Venezuela.
I love the thinking here. So our border's overwhelmed. Our border patrol agents are saying they're overworked and it's backed up. Oh, I know. We'll just skip the whole process altogether and fly them directly to their destination of choice. Oh my gosh. And it's
hey, can I get a free flight with no passport and just go anywhere?
I know, Josh, didn't you just have to get your passport like redone and like pay all this money for it? You should have just like gone to Finland and come in as an illegal. They came to 43 cities. That's 43. And this is the best part. The FOIA request like uncovers all these numbers, so 320,000 to 43 cities inside the United States, but they still will not, Customs and Border Patrol will not release the names of which cities or the current locations of those 320,000 people. And because they're concerned about, what was it? Yeah, they're concerned about security issues. And like,
it's just insane. I mean, it's
we're not even pretending anymore.
Well, who's not
concerned? Could you imagine any other country being this stupid, right? Like I'm like you said, Finland, like the prime minister of Finland would be like, yeah, sure. Let me take a jet from like Detroit and just fill a bunch of people in it and then fly them over to our country and we pay for them. It's like, again, I need to say to people, it's not some sort of an oversight or accident that hundreds of thousands or millions of people are crossing our southern border. This is by design. Joe Biden and his administration want hundreds of thousands of people to cross this border illegally and become basically permanent residents inside the United States and eventually get to elections and be able to vote. And here's what the ironic part. The most recent New York Times poll over the last weekend, they're doing the matchup between Trump and Biden. And here's what they found out. I was startled by this transformation. Donald Trump was leading by 5 points amongst white people, but he was leading them by 6 points amongst Hispanics. He's actually had a greater advantage amongst Hispanics than he did amongst whites. And this keeps happening. If Hispanics vote for Trump and Republican candidates, boy, it'll be the Democrats who want to build a wall. This whole replacement theory thing might not work out so well for him.
Yeah, it's an interesting thought. I was watching another Border Patrol agent. He went on Theo Von's podcast, who I'm a big Theo Von fan, but he was talking about the arrangements of work previous to the insane system that we see now. So like men from Mexico would get special visas to come be able to work here for a period of time and then go back, send money back or whatever. But it was all actually legal. And then what happened with Reagan was Reagan basically did a huge amnesty bill, right? So like people, the hope was you would come into the country, stay long enough until you hit one of these amnesty periods, which I'm sure that's what we're heading towards, right? There's no possibility that is not going to be put on the table at some point by some Democrat somewhere, that like, we're just going to do mass amnesty. If you're here, you're here. You can go get your documents or whatever. It's insane. But then I even pointed out too, the Biden press junket has been, well, he doesn't have the power to do anything. He doesn't have the power to do anything, which is an obvious lie. He has executive authority to do whatever he wants at the border. But at the same time, he's coming out himself and saying, hey, I don't have the power to do it. It's the Republicans' fault. But then we get a report that he's flying he's flying the population of Cincinnati into the country. But he doesn't have the power to do anything. He has the power to make it worse, apparently. I mean,
Yeah, if he has the
Besides that-
power to cancel, if he has the power to overturn 94 Trump era border security policies with executive actions in his first however many days, 90 days in office, he has the power to undo that and to just reinstate those. But they hate Trump so much, and they are so wedded to. I mean, Josh, I don't know what else you can conclude, but that it is deliberate. Exactly what you said. They're so wedded to this that they can't even. Yeah, they have no process. It's just
if I may,
unbelievable.
we're genuinely becoming we're becoming the immigration podcast. Like I feel like we talk about it all the time, but apparently, we share the same concern, the number one concern of voters, even in a place like Virginia. Rez, please cross your fingers. Please tell me this clip works because this is like the best. Big Red, we need. Yes, come on, cross your fingers, please. Technology come through. Yes, we're in.
All right. I mean, if you look at some of these exit polls, I mean, I live in Virginia. Immigration was the number one issue. I mean, again, these could change in Virginia.
Well, Virginia does have a border with West Virginia. Very contested area.
Build a wall. Like, what? I mean, if you look at some of these exit polls, I mean, I live in Virginia. Immigration was the number one.
Unbelievable.
All right, we're good.
They're just laughing.
They're
like,
laughing.
Ho, 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 those silly voters. They're concerned about immigration.
Like, yeah, maybe
West Virginia was a Democratic state for decades. They were so Democratic, they voted for Dukakis over George H.W. Bush in 1988. But boy, I wonder why they don't vote for Democrats anymore. I can't tell. Jeez.
So
white
along
rage.
the lines, white rural rage. This was the same kind of snide reaction to, well, why would anyone in Virginia worry about immigration? Okay, so last month in Virginia, I pulled the story back up. They arrested a 32-year-old Venezuelan national who's illegally here for sexual assault. And how did he get here? Because he crossed the border in September 2022. And Biden's Border Patrol, they caught him and they released him into the country. So no, Jen Psaki, it is a problem. Every state is a border state, especially when you have the Biden administration doing things like just flying people anywhere in the interior in the hundreds of thousands. We're not even talking like a plane from Ukraine of refugees who can't feed their kids because of Russia. These are massive numbers, and it's just mind-blowing that they would be mocking this and laughing at. Rachel Maddow, just to point out too, who's like laughing like, oh, West Virginia, she lives on this little like hobby horse farm in Vermont, which might be the only state that can't be considered a border state because nobody wants to go there, even Venezuelans.
So MSNBC, I'm just basically calling like a Pravda. I mean, they're basically just an extension of the press tour of the White House. It's an interesting strategy to think about. Their strategy here is to laugh at the number one concern of voters by self-admission. So I don't, what's the strategy here? Who are you? Is this just a pure hubris? Like they just slipped up here? Like I don't think independents care about immigration just as much as Republicans and Democrats do too. It's not like this isn't a relevant issue.
Yeah. But so when you run a business, the idea is the customer is always right. Well, in a republic, the voter's always right, quote unquote. Now, don't people get all crazy about this, but like if the number one concern of voters is immigration, you don't say, actually, you're stupid. This isn't a problem. It's not. I mean,
that's what they just said. They're like, you're stupid. It doesn't matter. Look, they really just find new ways.
See you in November.
See you in November. Speaking of Super Tuesday, we have the obvious sweep of Donald J. Trump. I believe Nikki Haley won.
Not a sweep.
She won Vermont.
Right. She won Vermont, home of Rachel Maddow.
Rachel Maddow probably voted for her. Yeah. And then President Biden, congrats. Two dominant performances from the top two candidates here. I mean, Josh, any surprise? Was there anything interesting about Super Tuesday to you?
I mean, there's no real surprise in the presidential stuff. I mean, everyone suspected that Donald Trump was going to do very well. It was only a question whether he would win all of them. And that he didn't win Vermont is not really, again, that big of a shock because what liberals are doing in a lot of these areas are crossing over. So same thing you saw in New Hampshire. But Trump's victory if Nikki Haley had any chance, she would be winning Republican primaries like in Colorado. Right. But Trump wins there. And so there was no real surprise in the presidential primaries for Super Tuesday, although there's some really good news, actually, if you're the Trump campaign, because you look at evidence, Patrick Ruffini brought this up. Evidence from New Hampshire, Nevada, Michigan, and now Texas shows that Joe Biden is bleeding Hispanic voters in these primaries. So again, this is just another sign that Hispanic voters are making the shift. We're seeing a realignment, and it's actually, of all people, Donald Trump, who's creating this multiracial workers' party. And the Democrats, by laughing at people from West Virginia, are only, sending themselves to electoral grave if they keep this up. And, if Democrats make it about identity, then you're just inviting Hispanics and Blacks to reject you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one of the other things out of the Super Tuesday that was really kind of neat, especially in Texas, they asked the teachers unions ahead of time, what would it take for school choice to succeed? And he, because what happened is they tried school choice several times. Republicans control the legislature, and there's been a Republican governor forever, just about. And they tried getting school choice passed, and it came up short in the Republican legislature. And so school choice activists are pressing ahead, and they're with primary challenges to a lot of these rhino Republicans that wouldn't go for school choice. And they asked the teachers union types, the student superintendents and stuff like that, what would it take for these Republicans, these rhino Republicans, how many of them have to lose for school choice to get passed? And he said, well, 6 of them. And what happened yesterday? 6 of these rhinos got defeated.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact,
where is this?
It's Texas.
Texas. Okay.
Legislative races in Texas. And there's actually another 3 races that are going to go to runoff, so they might even win a few more. And so it really looks like we're on the cusp of having school choice pass in Texas. Now, of course, these are the primaries, so this might still take until the next year before it happens. But things are looking really, really good for universal school choice to pass in Texas. And imagine how much of a game changer that would be. It's already so big that a large state like Florida has it, and lots of other states from Indiana, to Arkansas. But you get another very large state like Texas to, break up the ossified, teachers unions, the monopoly. That would just be great. It'd be great to see.
Yeah, and I love this story coming out too. And shout out to Corey DeAngelis, who, like
he's
Chris
awesome.
Rufo. Yeah, he's another one. We talked about this with Chris Rufo last show, how these are guys who are out there. They're not just like running a podcast, like talking about it, but they're actually
Scalpers.
doing things. Yeah, they're doing things. They're scalpers.
Yep.
And, his organization, they really went out there. They found those rhinos in Texas. They found the anti-school choice legislators, and they targeted them. And yeah, this was massive. He said 77% of the incumbents we challenged lost or were forced to runoffs. And that's like government by the people, for the people.
Right.
And I love the story too, because we talk so much about like what we're against and what we're against, and like, the border's bad and we're against Joe Biden. And this is something we can say we are absolutely for. Like, this is getting it back to rebuilding, getting back at the ground level with the next generation of Americans and actually making a real difference. I mean, very little makes a long-term political difference like education. And so a story like this is super hopeful and uplifting to me.
Yeah, I mean, you see on TikTok all these crazy psycho young people who are teachers that are intentionally wanting to brainwash the next generation.
Yeah.
This is the way to get away from that. Have the funding follow the student, not the system. So that I can't say enough about it. And you're right, like Corey DeAngelis and Chris Rufo, I think we at Catholic Vote are also like this. We don't just have podcasts. We're out there doing things like we did with the Dodgers, and hide the pride. We're trying to put some actual points on the board. Just saying that there's a problem out there, it's not enough. You got to get out there and get some things done. So
like
100%.
letting you guys into our internal conversations, like it's kind of funny, like Catholic Vote's been around much longer than this podcast or even media offerings in general for Catholic Vote. Like, I think there was a time where the preference was to actually be a little under the radar. Obviously we're reaping a lot of the benefits of now having a more direct connection with.
No, it's not under the radar. Let me explain to you. So like in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, there was no real internet to speak of. Okay. So alternative organizations.
That's a really interesting way to say this was before the internet. Oh, okay.
Okay. So alternative organizations, like whether it's the Christian Coalition or the National Rifle Association, they can't just go to the New York Times and say, hey, I'd like you to faithfully represent my views to all your readers. Right.
Mhm.
You know, you have to hope that the media writes about the subject that you care about. And then when they write about it, that they faithfully explain your point of view because you think it's the right view, obviously. But of course, we know the media is so, you know, they skewer everything. And as we saw with what we talked about last time with the 60 Minutes interview, they slice and dice and misrepresent you, and they try to embarrass you. It used to be, you know, people saw that with like, well, anyway. So the point is, what can you do? Well, our thought was as we came about in 2005, we thought, now, wait a minute. We have this internet and then, you know, YouTube and these other things, which are brand new. There's ways for us to communicate through email, through video, where we can bypass the media filter. We had this epiphany, like, wait a minute, we can communicate with as many people as could fill the University of Michigan football stadium. Why am I trying to beg the AP or the New York Times to write about us? Forget them. I don't need them. I'm going to go right to the people themselves and say, hey, you are concerned about these issues just like we are. Here's what we're doing. You want to, let's get the job done. And so that was the transformative relationship. Instead of begging left-wing media to write on a report about us, like, yeah, forget them. You don't matter. You know, we don't care. We're
Not
gonna go
only
right
that,
to
right. Not only that, but it sets us free to expose them and laugh at them too, because we don't need Scott Pelley to run us in 60 Minutes, and we don't need Joy Reid to like interview us. Even though it's really nice when they do interview Tiffany Justice because she shows them up.
Well, Scott Pelley learned from Joy Reid, in that Joy Reid brought up the actual books that were talked about, and then Scott Pelley's like, "I'm just not going to read the books and call them bullies."
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so I listened to that Chris Rufo interview. He's someone who I really admire.
The Josh Rogan one,
Josh Rogan.
Oh my gosh, pregnancy.
Is that his
brain.
brother?
The Josh
Rogan's like Walmart brother. Like
Josh Rogan is actually a brand of barbecue sauce at Aldi. So I think I was
nice.
thinking
okay.
about
You're
food.
hungry?
Yeah, I
already
always
thinking about lunch.
Always.
Yeah, so he's on Joe Rogan, and for those of you unaware, Chris Rufo has been instrumental in. He kind of cut his teeth in the school choice. Then he went into exposing a lot of the gender ideology, specifically drag queen story hour, the foundations of like drag pedagogy.
Oh, DEI. Sure.
And then DEI was kind of his latest scalp. He was a part of getting Claudine Gay fired for plagiarizing her entire existence, basically. But anyway, so he goes on Rogan, and he does kind of talk about how it is frustrating to see this like rage bait for podcasters or like social media influencers. So, oh, how ridiculous this is, but then nothing's done about it. And he was talking about what he did at the New College of Florida, if anyone's familiar with what DeSantis has done there. So
yeah,
DeSantis is like the greatest example of someone who's like, he actually said the lesson he learned from DeSantis was like, people are smarter than the press. People are smarter than the press. And if you're generating, like when you go in and you change the New College of Florida, which is basically just a communist outfit before this, I expect there to be like 100-to-1 negative headlines. And if there isn't that, you're not doing your job. So he's like, go in there, gut it, completely change it. He got rid of the DEI department. He got rid of all of like the woke professors. He's like, I want to create a liberal arts institution that's affordable for people to be able to go. And so he does this. And he said there's protesters. He got death threats. He went in. There's a whole uproar over the whole thing. And he said, like, there's these liberal, like, administrators looking at him and wagging their finger at him saying, you can't do this. You're going to bring violence to the school. You're going to yada, yada, yada. And he's like, I don't think you understand the situation you're in. I'm going to fire you. You're going to get fired. Like, your job is done. And he said he just realized, like, so many people have never been challenged. A lot of these entrenched bureaucrats have never been challenged. They've never
they're
felt
bullies, and they think they're the victims, right?
Totally. And so like they're actually very brittle and weak when they actually do get challenged. So of course he removed that entire board, and he instituted one with common sense and logic, one focused on education as opposed to indoctrination. And they've been very successful. But he's actually being sued by the ex-DEI director of the New College of Florida because he refused to refer to her with Z's or pronouns.
Nah.
Oh, the poor thing.
And not only that, the ACLU is involved in this lawsuit. Like this is a civil level, like a federal level lawsuit against
Lawfare.
it. Total
Uh-huh.
lawfare. The
Yeah.
ACLU is involved in this. So he's like, it doesn't matter because like they can screech all they want, but like send me to jail. Like I'm okay with it. Like you just need to get enough people of society ready to say, look, I'm going to do what it takes, but like we need, like this isn't okay, you know, and
The
what
emperor is
will
wearing new
get people
clothes.
there is the question, right? And I think media is important in that and revealing truth enough to get people motivated enough to actually make real change. And so I'm seeing like this is probably a good transition into what we saw with the WPATH files. Like,
Talk about the emperor has no clothes.
yeah, so there's this huge bombshell report, and I'm really excited to talk about this because this guy, it's Michael Schellenberger, right?
Yeah, big hero.
He has been awesome on a lot of the gender stuff. He's been kind of heroic, I'd say, like in revealing things that were unpopular at the time. He's been on Joe Rogan as well. So his organization got a hold of these files, basically internal files from WPATH is the world. It's a leading trans organization.
Yeah, so it's the World Professional Association for Transgender Health.
Yeah, and they're kind of going back and forth on internal communications. And there's been a couple whistleblowers that have given over internal files, internal communications of this organization to Michael. And so he basically just went through, said, hey, I'm going to compile everything. You're going to see the exact text that's been sent around by some of these doctors, and you will be able to see for yourselves how basically half-baked all of this is, how there's just no accounting for any of the consequences. So yeah, Eric, I know you really dug into this a lot, and I'm excited to go into the exacts, but what did this really say to you? Like, what did the fact that these really came out?
Yeah, this is, I would just say, like, preface with Michael Schellenberger, along with Matt Taibbi, if you remember him from the Twitter files. I think in the secular journalist world, they've really done more to expose the man behind the curtain in these major organizations than almost anyone else. But the WPATH, just to be really clear about what this means, WPATH is the professional organization that the NIH goes to, the WHO, and every major American medical and psychiatric association. They cite WPATH for any protocols, any procedures, any sort of like ethics or standards of care that they then put out to the American people. So this is a big deal. The president of WPATH is Marcy Bowers. You might remember her from Matt Walsh's What is a Woman? I don't think she intended the result that came out of that documentary. And when I say she, I mean he, because Marcy Bowers is a man who thinks he's a woman. The
Correct.
star patient for WPATH, who's sort of the out there voice, you might have heard of Jazz Jennings. And that basically this organization has been advocating for what I would characterize as the surgical destruction of healthy genitals on children for decades. But in 2022, so this is just 2 years ago, their standards of care were republished and they were adjusted to scrap the ethics chapter. That might be telling. And to then remove all age requirements for children, beginning puberty blockers and surgeries. Previously, they had required children to be 16 and 17 years old, respectively, for that gender affirming care, quote unquote, worst euphemism ever. And so this is a very powerful organization doing very bad things that are really harming children. And what the report exposes is that they know they're doing it. They know that hormone therapy is leading to things like liver cancer in teenagers. They know that they are doing it, and this is the big topic, without informed consent. We have videos now. We have these internal messaging boards among their experts, quote unquote, that demonstrate that they know 14-year-olds can't even talk about, having babies someday, right? And so they know that these 10, 11, 12-year-olds who are requesting things like vaginoplasties really have no idea what they're asking for, and that parents who are consenting to this aren't really consenting because they don't even know the questions to be asked. One of the doctors at some point says, I'm really confused what to do about it when parents come in and they don't even know the questions they should ask. What should I do? I'm like, well, maybe don't offer life-altering surgery that's going to turn your child into an androgynous mannequin from Macy's. Maybe say no.
So Erica,
no.
because,
Yeah.
and thank you for that, because it's all super well said. But we've been, again, we've been saying this for so long. And I think the big change now is that we have internal documentation. I don't think there's anything going to be more effective that we can do here
Yeah.
than just straight up read what's been going on in a lot of these chat rooms. So Big Red, if you could go up to the top one, we basically just selected from these files some examples of actual doctors and their communication back and forth. This might be a good time to plug the YouTube. If you guys want to check us out on YouTube, Loopcast, just look it up, subscribe, like this video. For the people live, you're going to be seeing this live with us, which I appreciate, but we're going to read it for the audio listeners as well. So I picked out 8 examples of just many of the problematic areas of what's been going on in WPATH. But the first one is basically an admission that liver cancer came from hormone treatment. So the first one is, hi, colleagues and friends, wondering if anyone else has to navigate the development of hepatic edemas. Erica, I don't know if your dad was a doctor. I don't know if that helps you in the pronunciation.
I didn't have
in a
to
young
study.
person, in a young person treated with testosterone and/or oral contraceptives. Without getting into too many patient-specific details, our team has a 16-year-old patient who was on. Sorry, we moved here. Non-enthindrone acetate for several years for menstrual suppression, and who has been on testosterone for slightly over 1 year. Patient found to have 2 liver masses, 11 by 11 centimeters and 7 by 7 centimeters, and the oncologist and surgeon both have indicated that the likely offending agents are the hormones and have recommended the treatment ceases at this time to allow the regression of the masses. We are prepared to support the patient in any way we can, IUD, top surgery when medically stable, etc. However, we are wondering if others have experience in this situation. That was back in 2021. Interesting. What jumps off the page here is support patient anyway, and they followed up with top surgery when medically stable. I saw this so much throughout this whole thing. Their idea of support is radically different than like what you would expect a normal,
do no harm.
practitioners. Right. Support often includes chopping people up would be the first thing that comes to mind. So yeah, that first one was pretty scary. If you want to scroll down to the next one, Rez. Yeah, and then we have basically an admission on the inability to have natural orgasm, and then also killing of fertility. Someone called this Marcy Bowers on it. Can you please clarify what sources indicate this information regarding orgasmic response and fertility ? The fertility question has no research that I'm aware of, as puberty onset allows for fertility options while blockers preclude these opportunities. I'm unaware of individual claiming ability to orgasm when they're blocked at 10 or 2.
Yeah, he knows. He knows what's going on.
And then it gets into, like, Erica, what you were saying before, throughout a lot of these files too. And they had some leaked meetings over Zoom where they're talking about it as well, where doctors were talking about their inability to get understanding and true consent from like 14-year-olds that they were doing this to, which obviously, I mean, they're 14. You're talking about, they were saying like, oh, we can't get full understanding on whether or not they know they won't be able to have children when they're like 20, 21, 22. And they know it. They knew it.
Right.
It
And
just gets dark from here, but
it's like, how informed of a understanding is it? Because like, we don't allow 14-year-olds to, get tattoos, to smoke cigarettes. We don't let them fight in our wars. Obviously, there's a lot of things that we don't allow them to do. We also don't say a 14-year-old can have sex with someone who's 25. Of course, the left wants to change that too. They really feel like,
oh my gosh,
the edification of the individual. This is what they're getting at. Like, they want to break it all down. They want, and again, this is where you start to understand a healthy society would never allow this. And the compromised position is just jail time for these people, as opposed to the gallows, what they deserve.
Yeah, exactly. I was even talking about, like, how this comes to mind too with different approaches to the pro-life movement. Like, a lot of people have talked about potential retributions for abortionists or Planned Parenthood or people that are committing the act of like killing children, essentially. What's the proper way for justice to be served there? And I think it's less obvious in that example, but much more obvious in this example, people that are knowingly taking away a child's ability to have children one day, or to have a normal function, or to give them lifelong dependency on drugs and surgeries in the future and things like that, who have been doing this and making ridiculous amounts of money on that. I think jail time becomes more immediately obvious for that. And I'd be
But
curious
I'd love for the lawyers to go after these people. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That's what's going to be. That's what's going to start to stop this, is when lawyers see dollar signs in their eyes and they go after these doctors who are doing this stuff because of all the horrible effects it's going to have on people. You know, but again, I'd love to go one step further, because it's like it's frankly a lot of moms who are fueling this, that are on their own kind of drugs, and it's, you know, you just can't help but feel like they are seeing, you know, oh, my kid is, you know, trans. There's this one lady who's like, all 4 of her kids were trans. All 4.
Right. She transitioned all of them. Yeah. Under the age of 13.
All 4. Like, the odds of that actually happening naturally would be 1 in a billion. But of course, the problem isn't her children. The problem is the mom. Look in the mirror.
Even that too. If you could, Rez, if you could bring up the doc again, just because there's some more examples of this. There's other examples of doctors being fully aware that their patients had things like schizophrenia or trauma-based psychological disorders, and still doing surgeries on them. And then there was an example where someone became dangerous, like threatened them after the surgery, threatened the doctor. And then he later came to find out that they had like bipolar disorder or something like that. So in terms of from an ethics standpoint, you're operating on people that you don't even know their full psychological condition. And now you're just looking for stopgaps afterwards. Like, how do I protect myself? How do I protect instead of like, it just goes against everything I think doctors would be taught about how to engage in a surgical procedure. Is just unbelievable. And again, we're talking about kids in like 14 to 18. We're not talking about adults here.
First, do no harm.
First, do no harm. And at one point in one of the video conferences, the audio, it's just mind blowing. One of the doctors suggests that the way to deal with multiple personality disorder is to obtain consent from each of the person's personalities, because that would cover it, right?
My God.
And you're just like, what? This is like a solution my 7-year-old would come up with. And these are. And the thing again, this isn't just some rogue organization of like ultra libs hanging out in San Francisco. This is the organization that our National Institute of Health cites for its policies regarding this sort of quote unquote care, which is the opposite of care. War is peace, right?
War is peace. Yeah. And very rich and powerful people too. So if you're wondering why this has been pervasive, these are some of the richest and most powerful people in medicine right now.
Yeah, I love this quote. This was the quote from Schellenberger, like the conclusion. He goes, the WPATH files are a picture of people single-mindedly committed to the hammer of gender medicine, and thus seeing every patient who comes to them as a nail. And that's exactly it. They are not serving these patients. All this talk about we're doing suicide prevention, which the studies out of Europe are showing actually this exacerbates the drive to suicide, this kind of treatment. But they are not seeing these children as victims, as they are seeing them as a means to the end, and the end is the affirmation and social acceptance of this radical ideology that kills. This is killing people, and
Can we now try to play the Jason Kelce speech to bring the vibe back up? Because I'm sad.
Please, I know I'm sad.
We all need to pick me up at this point. I know that's a little bit of a shock request to our producer, but we got to get the vibes right here.
He'll get there.
And a life that increasingly brings
yes. All right, here we go.
Yeah.
All right.
On. We've also given me 3 beautiful girls and a life that increasingly brings me more fulfillment off the field than it does on. We've had a great run, Kai. I am a product of my upbringing. I think one of the best things a person can be in this world is a father. A father who is present, loving, devoted just may be the greatest gift a child could ask for in our society. And I have a damn good one. My father believed in me more than anyone. Also given me 3 beautiful girls and a life
All
that
right.
There we
increasingly
go.
brings me more fulfillment.
So true.
I mean, what's there more to say about that?
That was
Beautiful.
awesome. I love that. Got a
And
little
I have a
choked up.
damn good one. Yeah. Go birds.
Nah, I'm not going
Okay.
that far.
Well, because he's
Don't
leaving.
Yeah, they're not.
Don't like the dirty birds. Yeah, no.
What's the
But-
story about the link, Josh? Are you familiar with the only stadium with a jail in it? I think they had a holding cell for
Well, that's
people.
not the link. It's the old Mets. Yeah, the old Veteran Stadium in Philadelphia. I bet. Yeah,
Because
They had a
people were like
holding
throwing
cell.
batteries or something.
Oh my god.
they used to throw batteries and snowballs. That was bad news, dude. Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy Philly.
I've been to
And it's
I've been
crazy
to
that
a
Jason
game
Kelce
in
came out of
Philadelphia,
there.
but I never show my team sports. I'm just kind of incognito.
I think that's a
need to
good
get
business
tuned up.
decision. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll go for it.
Good business decision. All right. So we roll now into the Twilight Zone. And you know what? I had people accuse me in the comments of not letting Erica do her Twilight Zone. Incorrect. She did Panera Gate last week for the real heads. Like,
I
we
did.
went
There
out of
was
her
one
way.
day last week where you did skip me, but it's all right. I kind of went to sleep.
I know it.
So.
And I profusely apologized, and Josh tricked
Yes,
me.
you did.
So I'm not taking any more slander of not allowing women on this podcast to speak. I'm very progressive. I'm an ally.
Whoa,
So
dude.
Okay, you're fired for saying
That's
ally.
yeah, little triggered there.
in light of it being Women's History Month, we're gonna let
Hmm.
Erica go first on the Twilight Zone, even though she's second in the order. Erica, what is your
All
Twilight
right.
Zone?
Well, I'm gonna try and bring it up a little bit too here. So yesterday, being Tuesday, there was a long period of time in which Meta was down, and we had Facebook was down, Instagram, Messenger, WhatsApp. They're having technical issues. Nobody really knew what was going on. Yeah, look at him. He's sad. Mark Zuckerberg, for those who are listening, has a really sad expression on his face. And of course, like women all over America just melted down because their Instagram wasn't up. They couldn't refresh their screens. They're getting angry. So what does Mark Zuckerberg do? The head of Meta gets on, drum roll, X.
That's
He
right.
gets on Elon Musk's platform to explain their technical difficulties. Technically, he used X Spaces, which is like their live, show chat space thing, to discuss the issue with his team. But I love the sweet irony of, there's sad Mark Zuckerberg with all of his logos on X Spaces to discuss issues.
I knew
And just
something was
remember-
up, though.
yeah.
I knew something was up because my wife said, "What's going on with my Facebook?" And I go
Yeah.
to Twitter to see Facebook down. I'm like, honey, it's not just you. All the
Yeah.
poor women in the world are unable to check out recipes. And
Remember when
So
when
sad.
X fired like 80% of its staff, and everyone's like, it's
I
gonna
remember
break.
that day.
They're not gonna be able to do anything.
They'll never come back.
And
Elon
were still
screwed it
standing.
up.
how can they run a company without all those extra pronoun officers,
I
right?
know.
yeah, geez.
Turns
Imagine
out.
that. Okay. Erica's been properly shown time, and now Josh,
Thank
your
you.
Twilight Zone.
Well, I mean, yesterday, not yesterday, I don't know when to record this, but Super Tuesday this week, one of the real cool stories is the Mark Robinson got the nod for governor in North Carolina. And this candidate is, he's just a different kind of Republican. Let me tell you what. He's a Black Christian, pro-life, pro-family star, and he gets in front of the congregation of this Black church, and he said, "It's time for Christians to stand up." He meant to stand up against what? The trans movement. He goes, "There
This
are
is my
two
favorite-
genders."
Truly my favorite speech
here we
maybe of
go.
all time. Completely electric.
Yeah, we got to have this.
Please tell me this works.
Here's something else I'm not supposed to say. Ain't but two genders.
Yeah. Preach.
Two genders.
I love it.
This guy's the best.
Ain't nothing but men and women.
Once more for the people in the back.
And
It
I
gets
can
better, too.
already see WRL out there. They got they licking their pencils right now, trying to write fierce as they can. Get every word of this here. Get every word of this. You can go to the doctor and get cut up. You can go down to the dress shop and get made up. You can go down there and get drugged up. But at the end of the day, you were just a drugged up, dressed up, made up, cut up, man or woman.
Yes.
You ain't changed what God put in you, that DNA.
That's right.
You can't transcend God's creation. I don't care how hard you try. The transgender movement in this country, if there's a movement in this country that is demonic and that is full of the spirit of Antichrist, it is the transgender movement. It's time for
No, keep going. Keep going.
Keep going.
Standing
This is
up and
awesome.
being unafraid to tell the truth. Come after me if you want to. I don't care. You want my
Here's
head?
my
Here
head.
it is right here.
Here it is.
Come
That
on,
is the
come get it.
best.
I don't care because it's time for us to stand up.
Nope, keep going. Let
And
it
I'm
go.
not afraid to stand up and tell the truth about that issue. They're dragging our kids down into the pit of hell, trying to teach them that mess in our schools. Tell you like
This is
this,
my favorite
that
part.
ain't got no place at no school. 2 plus 2 don't equal transgender. It equals 4. You need to get back to teaching them how to read instead of teaching them how to go to hell. Yeah, I said it and I mean it.
Yeah, I said it.
Love this guy.
I said it and I mean
my
it.
Gosh.
Oh, brother.
Truly,
I mean,
maybe
love
my
that.
favorite speech of all time.
The Nikki Haley, Karl Rove's, George W. Bush section of the Republican Party is like, we got to bomb countries. That's how we got to win the black vote and win Hispanics. Like, what? No. You got to stand up for what is right, stand up for families, stand up for, against the kind of porno smut they want to shove down their kids' throats. This guy's got it, man. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
There's truly so much from that
May
speech
he
I want
win.
to steal. Like the
Yeah.
moment of him saying, like, yeah, here's my head, come get it. Tapping her head.
Yeah, tap, tap.
Electric. And then the 2 plus 2 doesn't equal transgender is something I want to use regularly. Find a way to really slide that in. They're dragging all kids into the pit of hell. I was like, yes. I was watching that last night because I saw that he was winning the primary with the volume on and no headphones. And my wife's just in the background like, who is that guy? I was like, might become the governor of North Carolina. He's a legend. Mark Robinson. It's had my heart
May
since
it be
2021.
so. Oh, love it.
So
I love it. I wonder
okay.
what Joy Reid would have to say about that.
Can you imagine him on The View? They might just explode.
They couldn't handle Ben Carson. They couldn't handle Alan Keyes. They are never going to handle that.
No,
dude, man.
oh my gosh, that would be the end of The View. It's like he's almost like Trump-esque in that he can't.
Yeah.
Imagine trying to go up against that guy. He's electric. His stage presence is unbelievable. Okay, so I have an honorary mention. Twilight Zone. Keith Olbermann was so mad about the Supreme Court decision that he said liberal women are good for nothing and said that the Supreme Court should be disbanded. So he's talking about his girls, Ketanji
Nice.
Brown
I
Jackson.
might agree with him on the first charge.
Sotomayor.
That was,
So yeah, first off said that, and then someone said, that's a cope, cry more basically. And then he said in a comeback that he was crying tears that were pee, which is like, I don't know what level of deranged you got to be to give
those
that bad
aren't
of a
tears.
comeback.
It's urine, and you're like, wait,
It's
what'd you-
urine and you're bathing in it, or not, I'm bathing in it
Yeah.
or something. It was, I don't want to go into the pathology of it all, but yeah, that's an honorable mention for sure. But my true one, okay, and this one definitely gained a lot of traction and feels very close to home. So Josh, I wonder if you're familiar with the history of this, but there's a very famous picture called the VJ Day Kiss photo. It is a picture of a sailor coming, is a sailor in Times Square kissing a woman in a nurse uniform. You come to find out she's a dental assistant, but it had just been announced that the United States had won World War II, that the war was over. It was a moment of jubilation. And so it's just a really famous image. So
Iconic.
it turns
for
out
Mhm.
totally iconic. The Department of Veterans Affairs had a memo released saying that they were going to take their time to remove this picture everywhere, take it down in all of the Department of Veterans Affairs offices. Why, you may ask? In the memo, It said to promote a culture of inclusivity and awareness. So we have in
Because
the
the whole
memo
idea was that
itself.
the woman didn't necessarily consent to being kissed, in other words, or being
Correct.
photographed. Right?
Now they're
And they
worried about
even-
consent.
So there's a moment in here that I read, and I just was like, it truly left is right and war is peace. But this spontaneous moment was celebrated across the United States, and the photograph quickly became a symbol of victory and the joyous and into the joyous end of the long and devastating conflict. However, perspectives on historical events and their representations evolve. Recent discussions have highlighted concerns about the non-consensual nature of the kiss, promoting debates on consent and the appropriateness of celebrating such images in today's environment, especially within institutions which are committed to upholding the standards of creating a safe and respectful environment. So,
Wonk, wonk.
wonk, wonk.
I just see
me
Debbie
a break.
Downer's face kind of like on the screen, like back and forth.
Well, and
Debbie
it's like
Downer.
it's not like the
Ugh.
photo is of him grabbing a woman's ass or something like
Right.
that. He's coming up and he's approaching her and he's going to give her a kiss. And if she didn't want it, it wasn't going to happen. I mean, let's try. I mean, like anyone's ever
Well-
tried to kiss a person. Hello. I mean, it's
Josh,
just
but
such a
you're
joke.
falling for the trap. You're falling for the trap because now everyone's talking about was it consensual, is it not? And I went and found the history
No,
on it.
I'm not falling
You
for
know,
the
there's-
track. Come on. It's a joke.
You're not falling for the trap, but like that's what they want you to talk about. It's like, are we really going to debate this? But what I think what a bigger question is like this is an iconic, self-admitted iconic image of the celebration, the jubilation of returning from war, like a war that
Mhm.
men went to fight, sacrificed in. I mean, this picture just to me
Millions
symbolizes
died,
something
right.
much larger, right? Love, honor, sacrifice, relief, joy. These are all like all things where I've never enlisted, but those would be the reasons that I would enlist to be in the military.
And it's just
And
further
this
proof that the
goes
left
against-
are killjoys.
Again, because like they were talking, I was reading into the history of it, and they were saying like, yeah, everyone was
Heyo.
kissing, everyone was drunk, people were celebrating in the middle of Times Square. It was a total moment of jubilation, and of course, people were celebrating, having a good time. So the funny thing about this was, so I instantly put that up, and I'm like, it just really feels like the military is eroding the American spirit. I don't know if it's focusing their time on taking down iconic images or elevating weird trans people in the military. I really don't understand what's going on there. But
it's an
the
administration that
head
is
of-
going after our culture every way possible. They hate what we stand for. They hate our heritage, everything about it. Like that's what I keep trying to tell people. Like we're not just having a disagreement. It used to be for many decades where, you know, the left and the right, we would say, is this policy better for the middle class? Should we do it this way? You know, and there's maybe, let's say, a little bit more of an honest disagreement between two sides that you think still both wanted, you know, what was better
The
for
same
America.
ends. We're
That's
still
not
going for the
happening
same thing.
anymore.
Right.
That's not happening anymore. That's why we're saying these people are like Marxists. They despise our own country. Why else would you fly to send jets to other countries and bring illegals into our country by airplane? Oh, we want to save you the hassle of walking 1,500 miles. We'll just fly you in. It's just absolutely madness. So again, we have entered a new era here. It's just a whole new ball game. Like they absolutely hate what they stand for. And I remember talking about this with my wife. Like we're talking about the movie The Patriot. You know, Mel Gibson made in the year 2000 or whatever. And she's
Great
like, "Oh,
movie.
I love that movie." And I said, "Well, you know, Hollywood hates it."
Mhm.
And she's like, "What? They hate it? Why?" It's like a pro-America, and it's a great story about, you know, encouraging patriotism, and love of
Pro-America.
country, and I'm like,
you found it.
yes,
Sacrifice,
why they hate it.
fatherhood, yeah, all those things. They hate them all.
one of the best villains of all time in that movie, the guy who shot the son in The Patriot. I've never hated
Mhm.
someone
Burns
so
down the
viscerally in a
church,
movie.
right.
Oh my gosh.
well,
He
I
was a
don't
great
know
villain.
if the burning of the church thing,
Freaking
with
Brits.
people inside is altogether that accurate, but
It's not, but it was a great villain moment. You got to say,
Great villain.
yeah, great character.
Erica, were you going to say something? Because I have a follow-up to this actually.
Oh no, you go for it.
Okay, so the follow-up is people online were kind of calling BS on this. They were saying that no, the memo's fake, and because the Veterans Affairs Secretary Dennis McDonough came out and said no, this is going to be hung everywhere. It's not going to be taken down. And I remembered fondly a time where a major government agency said that a memo was fake, and then that memo ended up being real. And then that memo not only was in Richmond, Virginia, it ended up being in, I think, Portland, 3 or 4 other places. And then it
Milwaukee,
turns out
LA,
that
right?
they were developing sources inside Catholic churches, and they just lied about the whole thing. So maybe if I was 10, that logic would have worked. But I've lived a little bit now, and I've been at Catholic Vote, and I've been lied to by major government agencies. So it turns out the memo's been verified, but because of so much backlash, the Veterans Affairs Secretary said, no, we're not going to take it down. And it really just, back to Josh's point, like, this is kind of besides the point. Like, the fact that this was even suggested that this be taken down within a government agency, taken up by taxpayer time, by someone who's in a position of power, really makes you question, like, if the priorities are correct.
How about we hire people to defend our country that don't hate our country? Wouldn't that be a great idea?
Or our veterans, like, this is Veterans Affairs,
Yeah,
right? So these are people that take care of wounded soldiers. And like, I've heard so many complaints about the system of like not taking care of them well enough, not giving them good enough medical care, like not treating them with respect. Like, and so what they're doing is taking down pictures. Like, are we going to take down the statue in San Diego of this as well? Like,
but we're getting to the point, Tom, I think we're starting to push back. I mean, the left is so aggressive. So there was a case that just happened this last week where some environmental wacko job guy came up to Senator Joe Manchin, who's speaking at Harvard, and he threw the F-bomb and said, you're horrible, all this other stuff. And it was just such a great moment because Manchin squares right up, and he's about ready to slam him.
Little West Virginia action.
West Virginia, yeah. And his security guy comes in, goes to Manchin, just goes like this, like, I got it. And then turns around, grabs this little skinny dude like a rag doll and just throws him out the door. It was so awesome. It's like, we need a little bit more of this. We do. Like, if you think we have this arrangement where we just assume, okay, you're speaking at Harvard and we're going to have this exchange of ideas. And then someone comes in and tries to hijack the moment. Like,
not at Harvard.
You know what? Don't just politely let this guy completely dominate it. It's like, grab him by the scruff of his neck and throw him out the door.
Did you hear what the eco-terrorists did in Germany this week? This was great.
No, I'm all ears.
Yeah, so we had the eco-terrorists. They call themselves the Vulcans with a K because it's German. The Vulcans, they show up to protest fossil fuel burning. They tried to burn down the Tesla plant. Like,
I did see that.
The EV plant. I was like, okay, guys, I know it's hard, but let's have some.
This all kind of reminds me of like what I was talking about with Rufo. It's like these people just have never been told no. Yeah. They for sure have never been told no by their parents. They were probably raised by parents that let them walk all over them. They were definitely not told no by their college professors, who are all the same kind of infantilized.
Absolutely.
And then they get into the workplace, and now they have insulation from DEI departments to basically bully other people to like use their pronouns, yada yada. Like,
so
these people have never been told no in their lives.
That's a great point, Tom. So what's fun is when the cameras roll at the first time they hear no. So that's like those snotty little kids that came to Senator Feinstein's office. And it's like, you need to take action right now to save the planet. And Senator Feinstein, who was a super liberal Democrat, she's like not there for it. These little Marxist kids, like, well, that's not the way things are done around here. You don't just go bossing things around. And like the teacher's like now gonna rally the kids and no, but actually she's like, yeah, no, I'm sorry. That's not effective. Don't come in here. I know something about getting a law passed. It was just
and I want to just add, it's not only that they have never been told no, and per Abigail Schreier's new book, which I'm going to plug again, Bad Therapy, they have also been told since they were yay high that they have a mental illness or they have some kind of mental problem that is not their fault, and it is the result of their parents' generation and their grandparents' generation and these patriarchal structures, and every one of them is a victim. So not only do you have people who have never heard no, but they've also been told that they are owed and that they are victims. And it is absolutely, that's a recipe for the kind of crazy disaster we see with these eco-terrorists. This was interesting. I went to see Dune 2 last night. And I was telling Pogo this earlier. I went to see Dune 2, and one of the ads or the previews was, an ad for Join the Army National Guard. And the way it starts out is with this like 3 sentences about how your generation, speaking to the alphabet generation now, like teens and high schoolers, your generation, it's been messed up. The older generations have messed up our world, and you're going to have to fix it. And how are we going to do that? We're going to become the newest, greatest generation. But the whole premise was that you all are victims, the world's messed up, and now join the Army National Guard and we'll fix all the things that our parents did wrong.
I mean,
So it's
the
just,
world is
come
messed
on.
up because of
It
sin,
is.
but it's not. You're going to be
I saw
just as
someone-
bad, or if not worse, if you keep
Yeah.
this up with your
Speaking of like
participation trophies.
Speaking of greatest generation with the celebration picture, they're like
Mhm.
they're just gonna need to replace it with two dudes kissing. Then it would be okay.
Oh,
Like,
oh,
that's- you know what I mean? Like if we recreate that
Get
now,
out.
that would be what
Bogo,
happens.
get out.
All right. Yeah, I think we might need to end on that suggestion. Thank you
And
all
pray.
for joining.
Kiss this episode goodbye,
Right.
man.
Mwah.
Yeah, don't worry. We're gonna get some nice spiritual content on Friday. If you want to join us, 11 a.m. Eastern time. Josh and I will be live on our consecration to St. Joseph journey. But if you want to help the program, subscribe on YouTube, like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, send us a review. We appreciate those. Talk to me, loopcast@catholicvote.org. If you want to support the program, loopcast.org is where you can donate. That link will be in our description. And we need extra prayers, but we hope you all have a great Wednesday, or whenever you listen to this. St. Thomas More, St. Fidelis, Our Lady of Guadalupe, pray for us, and we will see you guys on the next stream. Peace.